of new members to this group. So let me explain a little bit about how the Q&A sessions work. So a while back, I was talking to a friend about the fact that I do my online students of my membership and my VIP programs. They get regular access to me. They get to do what you guys are going to do today and ask me a bunch of questions and get my feedback on it. And I said, I want to be able to help more people, but they're just, there aren't enough hours in the day. I find myself very busy. So she said, well, how about Gemma, just as you would if it was a dog and a person, how about you break it down into smaller chunks? Could you manage like 15 minutes? And I was like, yeah, I could manage 15 minutes. So here I am on a Friday at 1 o'clock with 15 minutes of Border Collie wisdom to share. You get to ask your questions on the Thursday morning post. It comes out every Thursday morning, except when, like last week, I was away for the weekend travelling down to Devon with my son who had just finished his GCSEs. So there's the odd Friday where it doesn't quite work out. But for the most part, I'm here on a Friday at 1 o'clock to answer your questions. So to keep me on track, because I am a bit inclined to ramble on a little bit, I'm going to ask Alexa in a second to pop on a 15-minute timer, and then we will dive into the questions. Now, one of the questions that I've had today actually didn't make it into the comments, but they were asking about Collie Culture Club. I'll leave that one until the end when the buzzer goes off, just so that we can get through as much kind of information as possible. But what you should know, this Facebook Live that I do on a Friday afternoon, when I do this for my students, is actually a Zoom rather than a Facebook Live, and it means that we can be a bit more interactive. So if you have follow-up questions from my answers, you're able to kind of answer back in real time on Zoom, which is a bit different to a Facebook Live. So it might be of interest to a few of you that we have some really cool bonuses available at the moment for joining Collie Culture Club. But as I say, more on that a little bit later. Right, let's get started with Alexa, shall we? Alexa, timer for 15 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Gemma. 15 minutes, starting now.
All right, let's go. So, Eileen had a question. She said, hi Gemma, I love your training method, thank you. My collie Cross Whippet barks at the Dyson cleaner. I've tried removing her from the room when using it, tried putting it in a corner and leaving it there, tried moving it back and fro when not plugged in, but she still barks and tries to bite it. When it is nearly nearby but off, collie eye staring it and guarding it. Any tips, please? Thanks so much. So, Eileen, funnily enough, Tracy also had a similar question. She's one of my online students, so we talked about this in one of our Q&A sessions recently. Essentially, the reason that Border Collies in particular, although there are other breeds that don't like them as well, the reason they don't like vacuum cleaners is because you have A, a lot of noise, and B, a lot of vibration, and your attention is also on what you're doing with the vacuuming, as opposed to potentially being able to offer any support or comfort to your dog. So from their perspective, the issue is quite real. It's something which is, in their eyes, probably, if they were to write in and ask me a question about it, they'd be like, that evil machine that takes my mum's attention. So here's the advice that I gave my student that she's gone away and had a play with. In the first instance, management is a really, really good tool, okay? So if, and I don't know from obviously from this, but if your dog likes to go in the car, for example, one of the things I would look to do is go and pop her in the car, do my vacuuming, put my vacuum away, and then bring her back out the car. That is absolutely one of the things that I might do for my dog. If she told me, like yours is saying, I really don't like the vacuum cleaner, because there's no need for her to absolutely love the vacuum cleaner. And as I say, that's one potential management thing. Now, in addition to this, what I might want to do is I might want to get to the point where I don't have to go through the the faff of taking her outside, popping her in the car and doing that. And obviously on a day like today, it's relatively rare in the UK, but it's quite warm. I don't know necessarily I'd want to do this if the car was in full sunshine at the moment, like that. So the thing that I would also be looking to do is just get her to the point where she's comfortable with it. Not that she has to love it, or indeed that she needs to stay in the same room whilst it's being used, but that she was like, do you know what, I'll slink off out of here and I'll stay out the way whilst you're vacuuming. So management is always a good way to get started. That's that's one of the things that I would always look to do. And so removing her from the situation, maybe if somebody else can walk her, or as I say, if she can pop her in the car, that's where I would start with to begin with. Because obviously you're going to want to vacuum, I assume, in the short term. Second off, what I would look to do is any training that she particularly likes to do. I would aim to do that training session when that vacuum cleaner was in the room. Not doing anything with the vacuum cleaner at this point, but just it being in the room. So one of the things that is happening is there is some positive associations happening for being near that machine. I would then also think about, is there somebody else that I could employ a bit further on down the line that would be able to move the vacuum cleaner around whilst I could work with her? So I could teach her something like a settle, for example. Can you settle on this blanket or on this bed whilst somebody's pushing that vacuum cleaner up and down in the next room, probably to start with? I probably wouldn't start with her in the same room. Because the difficulty you've got is that you're trying to do these two things at once. You're trying to use the machine and deal with her. And really, from her perspective, she would really like your support over here. So settle training is the thing that I would look to do. And if you go onto my website, and I think actually probably if you look under the pinned announcement section, you will see that I've done a settle post which explains how I go about it and what I do. But that's what I would be aiming to do with her. But like I say, it wouldn't necessarily be me thinking, do you know what, she's going to love the vacuum cleaner later on down the line. What I would be aiming to get to a point is that she tolerates it, that it isn't something that completely worries her, and that, you know, she can stay out of the way whilst it's potentially going on. Hope all of that makes sense. But yeah, let me know how you get on with that one. Okay, Debbie had a question. She said, my Fleur is 21 months now and is car obsessed. Will launch herself at them, up on her hind legs, having a right pop. She also demonstrates the same behaviour to really big dogs that bark at her. She's also petrified of a hairbrush, hers, my own, if I brush the cat. She uncontrollably shakes and won't come near me. Last time I brushed the cat, it was 3 days before she would come close. Honestly, poor little love. So it sounds like for Fleur, the world is a little bit of an overwhelming place, which is pretty normal actually for adolescent border collies, because, yeah, you know, when you think about what they were bred to do and where they maybe traditionally would have lived, there's a lot of stuff that we ask them to sort of live with on a day-to-day basis that their brains aren't really wired for. So we need to just give them a little bit more support in order to be able to help them. So with the it's a similar thing to with the vacuum cleaner. First off, I'm going to think about what management strategies I can put in place. So if I have a dog who is you know, launching at cars, then I'm going to go, okay, I need to stop taking you close to where cars are in the first instance. I need to, you know, get you away from that, because every time you see a car and you're rehearsing that behavior of how to deal with it, that becomes logged in your brain and it becomes a really strong pathway in your brain about how to deal with it. So I need to stop that. So what that looks like probably is going, okay, even if the walk to whatever off-lead walk that we might be going is just a 5-minute walk along the road, I'm going to pop you in the car and we're going to do that drive instead. Okay, so we don't have to do that walking past the traffic. Then, alongside that management, I'm going to work on a training strategy to help make you feel more comfortable around traffic. And I've got a lovely before and after video in my club group. One of my students has been on holiday in I think it might be Cornwall or Devon, can't remember, but it's a beach holiday. And last year they showed a video of how their dog was coping in the car park that they had to go across in order to get back to their car. And she'd got a lot better by that point, but you could see she was not a happy bunny going across this car park. She's posted a video in the last week of this dog going across the car park, paying attention to mum, checking in, going, do you know what, that car's a bit thing, I'll look at you. Massive improvement, really, really good. And the way that we went about it was we said, okay, what's the smallest version of being around cars that you can cope with? And usually that is something like being at the back of an enormous big supermarket car park and watching the traffic from a distance moving around. Normally dogs can cope with that. And then we put together a plan where we go, okay, that's the smallest version. What's the slightly harder version? What's the slightly harder version? Some of you in the group will have heard me talk about this before, but I think about it in terms of like school education system. So here in the UK, we have reception school, we have primary school, we have secondary school, sixth form, university, and then PhD. So what we're aiming to do is find out what her reception school understanding is, and we want to grow that through to those PhD level challenges of walking past, say, busy or noisy traffic. So that's on the car front. That's the sort of thing that I would work on with you, in club, for example. Now, in terms of her being worried about big dogs, I think that's fair. You know, if she's feeling a little bit worried about the world, which sounds like with the hairbrush, that's definitely something that's bothering her. Um, we also need to look to support her in trying to avoid situations where she's panicking. Because again, every time she panics, every time she reacts in that way, it's becoming a pathway in her brain which is getting stronger. So, what we would aim to do, we have a 6 week course, a term, I call them, within the club where we look at what we call reactivity to resilience. So at the moment, she's reacting to these big dogs. So we would work on a program of management in the first instance, like I've said, so avoiding those situations in the short term. And then in the longer term, building up a plan where she gets to be more comfortable around probably not big dogs to start with. We'd probably use stooge dogs, which are a bit smaller, those that she's already comfortable with. And we would teach her skills like being able to turn away, being able to look at them and then look back at you, being able to move off a path comfortably without sort of getting panicky about it. Just thinking about those things that you want her to be able to do, but positively reinforcing those steps in a place that she feels comfortable to then be able to use them in more stressful situations, like when a big dog is approaching. So that's definitely something we would look to do. And in terms of the brushing, one of the things that I would want to do is I would want to check out physically how she's feeling in her body. What I would guess at is that the hairbrush potentially is uncomfortable for her, and that might be because something within her body is a bit sore. It might be that she has a great deal of noise sensitivity, so when that brush is going through, that's really triggering her. That's the sort of thing that we would think of in terms of noise phobic, and yeah, that's definitely something that I would, if we were to work together, I'd want to work on it in a bit more detail. And then the final thing would be looking at her overall in terms of a holistic point of view, what she's eating, what herbal supplements we might be able to do in terms of being able to help calm her, that kind of thing. You'll have probably seen in previous ones, Holly Barker is a canine nutritionist that comes to talk to the club once a month. And this would be one of those perfect ones where we would say, okay, let's get you started on something like chamomile, maybe something like lemon balm for kind of that noise, sensitivity. And then we would check back in with Holly in a month's time and see how she was getting on. But that's what I would do, Debbie, if she were mine, because it sounds like the world is a bit overwhelming for her at the moment, bless her. So, and yeah, understandably, she's a bit worried. Okay. Next question is from Elaine, and she says, Willow domineers Blue, and they both bark too much at most things. It's hard to understand what to do about both, as I've tried so many things and none of them work, unfortunately for me. Willow is terrible on our walks when we meet someone with a dog, or if I stop and chat. It makes me sad, and I don't enjoy our walks as it's embarrassing. She's not aggressive, just reactive. Big hugs. Yeah, because, I mean, the thing is, when we have a dog, partly the reason we probably got a dog in the first place is because we like the idea of taking them out and about walking. So for you to feel like it's making you sad and stuff, that I'm sorry to hear that. So first and foremost, I was talking to one of my club students a bit earlier today. She's got 2 dogs. To start with, what I would say is we need to look at both dogs individually and work out what level of training they've got at the moment, and then what we need to do to put in place to build that up. Now, practically speaking, that sometimes is difficult because, if we've got multiple dogs, but we are not, we're not flush with time, we may still need to be doing stuff with the 2 dogs together. So I would take a notebook. I love a notebook. I love a list. I would write myself a list of those places I can take the dogs where I am least likely to get any sort of reaction. And then from there, I would go, okay, that's the number, the lowest scary walk, if you like, is a number 1 there, and then I would go all the way through to what is the busiest place, the place I would be most likely to get a reaction, a really difficult place. And that essentially would be the beginnings of my reception school through to university PhD level plan. So those are the different locations. So if you're having to go somewhere with both of them, I would look to go to that sort of nursery environment for the time being. So that's our management in the short term. And then I would look at, okay, what are you barking at and what could you be doing instead? So what can I do to positively reinforce something that would be either useful, helpful, or, it would give you a job to do so that you are not reacting to this other thing. So what that probably looks like, and certainly from what you've said about, if you stop and chat, is looking to teach a settle. So we talked a little bit about the settle a bit earlier when I was talking about the vacuum cleaner. And again, there's a resource about teaching that settle on my website. So feel free to go and kind of search settle on the gemmafisher.com website, and it'll bring it on up. And that would be a really good place to start. You haven't given me very much detail about what the two dogs are like and things, but I would love to dig into it a bit more with you, to be honest, because understanding a bit more about who the individual personalities are and then understanding their level of training would be a really good thing to dig into. And I'm just thinking, one of the bonuses for joining the club at the moment is next Tuesday evening I'm going to be doing a hot seat talk with the new students that are coming in. Lane, if you wanted to dig into that some more, that would be a really good thing to be thinking about. And as I say, that's literally just for joining this month. So yeah, take a look at that. That might be of interest. Okay, Bob had a question. He said he shared a photo actually. This is Jet Girl, our lovely Welsh collie. She's 16 weeks old. She loves the car. We fed her treats in there to get her used to it. Once we get travelling, though, she gets very excited and will lunge, jump and bark at the window at all the things speeding past. Cars, lorries, people, any trees or grass that hits the car. We live in Devon, so one track, overgrown roads are plenty. I've just been to Devon, I know what you mean. She really looks out of her guard. I'm not sure if it's fear I see in her eyes or just pure excitement, but she gets very wound up. She's not fully crate trained yet, so I don't want to break the crate by putting her in it for journeys to walks, vets, etc. We started her in the back seat on a harness, but she struggles so much that she gets tied up in it. Then we tried her in the boot, a hatchback lol, but she is just the same, even with chews and treats. She's also quite reactive to traffic on the road whilst out walking, so I guess these are all tied in together. So yes, Bob, essentially I do think they're all tied in together, because what she's saying is if she's reactive to the traffic out on the road, the traffic is something that bothers her, and then obviously when she's in the car and she can see stuff moving around, she's trapped. She can't do anything else. I'm sure you'll have heard the expression fight or flight. The only option she's got in that situation is to fight, because she's stuck where she is. I know, Alexa, don't worry, but I'm just going to finish this one. So what I would be working on is definitely that crate training. I think that would be the first thing I would get started on, because the beauty of having a crate in the car would be that you could cover the crate, so you could immediately reduce some of that stimulation for her, which would be a really good idea. Unless you really need to at the moment, I would also I don't know if you can see here, he's very dark so you might not be able to see him, but this is Bertie down here, who is 14 weeks old. He was 14 weeks old yesterday. He's my mum's Cocker Spaniel puppy, and he came home at 8 weeks. He is comfortably crate trained. Okay, so and I would say that within probably the first week he was happy being popped in his crate, and he sleeps in the crate during the day and that kind of thing. What I would suggest is it wouldn't take that long to get Jet to the point where she could do that, and then you could very easily use that for the car, and that you could make that her safe space. Again, if you go onto my website, it will show you I think there's some video of me doing that, possibly with Toddy, possibly one of my dogs anyway. I grabbed for some information on crate training, so you would absolutely be able to find how to do that on the website, and that would be the first thing I would look to do, because if you need to take her out and about in the car to be able to get to places, then we need to fix that first and foremost. And then, just like I was talking about the traffic stuff earlier, once she's comfortable, then I would be looking to drive her places to then, to do those, get her feeling more confident around traffic. The back of one of those big supermarkets. One of the things that we found, I have nothing against Lidl and Aldi. I shop in Lidl. I like Lidl. But the car parks are really small, so the comings and goings are not good for the first levels of any sort of car training. So what I would always aim for is one of those big, like a big Tesco Extra type car park, where it's really enormous and you can go to the far end where you can watch stuff go by. That's what I would be doing with her if she were mine. so yeah, I hope that's helpful. And if you're stuck with any of those links, then do let me know. Right, guys, I have a couple of questions left, but I'm afraid I've run out of time. Alexa is buzzing me in the background. I will just very quickly answer the question that I had in... here we go, in the question. So Elizabeth was asking me, wondering how much it would be monthly and what would I have to do, what would I have to aim to do, etc., for joining the club. So let me tell you just a little bit about that, because essentially all of the stuff that we've talked on today, we work on in the club. And the benefit of being in the club is twofold. One is you have a bunch of people that have been working with me for a while, so they know the sorts of things that you might be looking for if you were to ask in the group for these sorts of questions. So that's, you get feedback very, very quickly. Second off, Q&A sessions, like I've said, on Zoom, we can do a bit more talking backwards and forwards, which is really nice for me, because quite often I do have kind of follow-up questions, or you have follow-up questions, and we're able to discuss that in the moment. So that's really helpful. And in terms of the time that it takes, one of the things I look to do is say to people, you know what, whatever time you have available, we'll work with that time. So it isn't a question of you need to find hours and hours out of your day to do things. What my goal is that the training that you're doing is not happening over here and then life is happening over here. My goal is that those two things are coming together all the time. So, for example, Bertie is learning to come out of his crate with a release word, which means that he has permission to come out of the crate, because that permission is important when he's meeting and greeting people, or he's meeting and greeting other dogs. So we're practicing these things all of the time, rather than they happen in fixed training sessions. All right, so training and life is alongside each other. It is £37 a month to join the club, and you get a weekly Q&A session with me. You also get once a month we have a canine nutritionist, Holly Barker, who's just wonderful and very entertaining. Come and talk to us where you can ask her questions about your dog's diet and health, herbal supplements that can help with anxiety and stress. She's invaluable. She's very, very useful. Once a month we have a guest speaker. So this month's guest speaker was my friend Becca Somerville, and she came and talked to the group about reactivity in dogs and why it happens, what we do about it, the causes, all of this stuff, all of this good stuff. We dug into that. And again, my students were able to ask her questions at the end, which was helpful. So that's how the club works. You will get an email from me every Monday with some homework to be getting on with, and we run through 6-week terms. So you get a weekly email for 6 weeks, and then you get the choice of whether or not you want to carry straight on into the next term, or whether or not you want a break. So when people sign up for 6 months or 12 months, and you get a little bit of a discount if you do that as well. If you sign up for 6 months or 12 months, then what happens is, you keep rolling through as you choose during that period. And that can be a little bit easier for people, they tell me, because, once it's paid and they're in, they don't have to worry about that coming out monthly. So if that option is better for you, then by all means go for that one. So hopefully that answers your question, Elizabeth, on that. And I will just pop you a message just to let you know that we've covered that in today's Q&A. But if anybody else has any questions about the club, do pop them in the comments, and I'll do my best to get back to you either later on this afternoon or over the weekend. All right. Anyway, I shall love you and leave you. We've got some lovely weather in the UK this afternoon, so hope whatever you're doing, your dogs are staying nice and cool and you're enjoying the sunshine. All right. Nice to talk to you today, and I will catch you soon.